All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the channel. My name is Chris the High Guy Jacobs, and today we're taking a look at episode number 2 of Who the F Are You? Joining me today, I have the one and only AlleyFountain, pardon me. Joining us on the channel here today, we are going to be chit-chatting a little bit about who she is, how long she's been here, obviously the amount of influence that she has. She's well known within the English chats and within the community itself. And we're going to take a deep dive into some of the opinions based on what the developers have been doing recently and some of the releases that they've got coming out in regards to paywall restrictions and things like that, and the imbalance that we have in the game. So if you'd like to, go ahead, go ahead, Allie, go ahead and say hello.
Hello. I joined the game about a year and a half ago, and I started out, just a small little person in a dead alliance. I happened to mistakenly attack a very large alliance, and they ended up recruiting me in under their wing. Yeah, it was so weird. I mean, they burnt me to the ground, and they were just like, "Hey, you seem really cool. Come join us."
Yeah.
And so I jumped over there, and then they talked me into getting a farm, and I joined in the region where I met Geo, actually. My best friend in game. We've been friends for a year and a half, and honestly, we have gone all over the maps. I've met so many incredible people and grown insane amounts just bouncing around, learning from everyone.
And I think that's probably one of the best parts about the game. Like people talk about it as, like it's a mobile game and it's a war-based and you're spending a lot of time just building and things like that. But a lot of it has to do with the community and a lot of it has to do with the friends that you make in the game. Those relationships are absolutely quintessential to making the game, worth it to play, I think, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So you said you started about a year and a half ago. What was it that brought you into Doomsday to begin with?
So I went through several surgeries in 1 year, and after my second surgery, I was going to be bedridden for a while. So I was like, you know what? Instead of doing nothing, screw it. I'll download one of those stupid apps that, you can earn money on or whatever. Okay.
Oh,
So I
Misplay or
downloaded
whatever.
Misplay.
Yeah,
Yes.
Misplay. Yeah.
Yes. So I downloaded that. And Doomsday was like one of the first two that I clicked on. And I'm not kidding you. Since the day I started that game, I have not missed a login day.
It's addicting in some of the worst ways.
It is.
And I think it's one of the things that gets me is they give you so many red things to click off in a day, so many damn red dots, and I can't have those red dots, so I have to click them.
I hate red dots.
And when I know that they're there, even if I'm not playing, I know that they're there. I know that they're taunting me.
Yep, exactly.
So in that situation, let me ask you real quick about your account. What is your current might at now?
I just recently hit 98 million, and my goal is 100, and I'm so close, but that last 2 is killing me.
Yeah, getting close to the big 9 digits. You got tier 6 yet?
No, I only have like 10 researches left, but I'm saving. That's what I'm doing right now, so I can just fly through it.
So what are you searching for the most? Like what do you got? Like what are you saving for? Are you infantry, rider, ranged?
Infantry.
So many people are. My entire alliance is infantry. It's like finding a unicorn when you find someone who's a rider or a ranged.
My farm though, I'm building to just be garrison range.
Yeah. Got to get that chasey.
So that way I have like a secondary just like chill there.
Oh, you said ranged, not chasey.
Yes. So
No,
I wanted to
Jacob.
know it's okay. I want it to be garrison range, so that way I have like a secondary to just hold things while I fight.
No, that makes sense. My alternate account is infantry, and then the main account that I play is rider, so I'm trying to do a little bit of both. But that backpack only has so much weight, you know what I mean? Like, running 2 accounts, there's just so much to do,
Honestly.
So, I mean, you've been in the game now for long enough to be able to see some of the progress. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. You've been in the game long enough to be able to see some of the progress. And we were just talking previously how back in the day, it felt like it was a lot more balanced. There was a lot more balance regards to pay to win versus free to pay and things like that. So why don't you give us your opinion on where the game is now and kind of maybe some of your opinions on that?
So I'd like to actually start about like when I first joined and the pros and cons to each side. So when I first joined, I really didn't feel like I needed to spend. And again, being veteran, I didn't have a whole lot of money. So it was okay.
Perfect.
Because I could grow and being in the right alliance did help that, right? Like all the stuff coming in was a huge benefit and that's how you grew. Now I feel like even though I'm a pretty decent sized player, right? There's thousands that are bigger, but I am a decent sized player. However, because I'm not a huge spender, and now I refuse to be a big spender because of how they've pushed it,
Hmm.
um, I don't feel like I even have a chance. Even looking at the arena, there are players that have 7 mil less might. And if you look at all the categories it shows you, they are weaker in every category. And because now there's so many different sub options like the car, right?
Yeah,
Your
vehicles.
super weapons, yeah, your vehicles, your super weapons, all of that, like that you can't see, stand no chance against those guys because not investing in those other things.
So, so if you don't mind me asking, like, how much do you invest in the game? Like, how much do you spend? Like, right now, you're saying you're not spending anything, but like in your main time when you were, because you saw value in it, how much were you investing at that time?
At that time, I was spending probably like $100 every paycheck, so like $200 a month,
Hmm.
which is quite a bit. I feel like for the average person, that's a pretty good chunk of money.
Not just for the average person. Let's get this clear. That's for the average video game. This is a video game. Let's get this clear. If we're buying a
Exactly.
quad A title for 60 or 70 or $80, and we're sitting here talking about $200 a month, okay, this is a great, like, that's something I want
Not
people
to
to
not
wrap their
even
head on.
see substantial growth, right?
Yeah.
To just maintain where you're at and to keep up with others around you. That's not even to excel
Yeah,
beyond what your competitors are doing.
don't even get me started on the people who actually whale, like Safe Me and people like that who have literally spent over $1 million on their account. I mean, that type of thing by its own right. Just and don't get me wrong, like I was talking with Panda as well. I understand the premise and the need to have the game with pay to win elements. I totally appreciate
Of
that.
course.
There has to be ways for them to generate. Now, they could go the ways of, people like Fortnite or people like Smite or people like, League of Legends and make the game entirely free. And the only thing that they're paying for is cosmetics, which is
Mhm.
a wildly successful model. But if they're going to pick the pay to win options, I can appreciate what they've done. However, I'm sure we can agree, like you mentioned, they've got vehicles that have been released, they've got new skins that have been released, they've got super weapons that have been released, all within such a small period of time. How many
Yep.
players are actually going to be able to take advantage of those?
Not just that, it also adds confusion, right? So, like, if you're a newer
Oh,
player coming into the game, how are you going to decide where to start, where to grow, and what to focus on? Because there's so many different aspects now, and there really are no true answers as to what is the most beneficial, right? Even looking at the stats of things, like, okay, well, this gives me 2%, but this gives me 5%, but it also takes off 5%. So, like,
mhm.
there's so many different aspects now, and then,
It's
like you
very
said, they're
convoluted.
releasing so many things back to back to back that it's
Mhm.
like, okay, well, I'm not gonna be investing in my vehicle. Now that this new thing is coming out and it's better than the last one, ditch the vehicle, I'm going to the super weapons, right?
And those super weapons are pretty crazy. Like if you look, even like if you look at the skins, they came out with the Lewis
Mhm.
skin first, which was very subpar in my opinion. It was
Yeah,
very kind of
definitely.
like half-assed. But then they released
Yeah.
the Calamity Sisters, and you went, wait, hold on a second. What type of skins are we going to get? Are we going to get the Lewis skins? Or are we going to get the Calamity Sister skins? Right? And they're all effectively all within a very short period of time. And when we're talking, what, 5-6 months for all of this stuff to drop?
And not even just that, but the cost of them
Oh,
and what it takes to obtain hundreds of dollars.
well, not only that, I have to mention something as well that I mentioned in the last conversation I had with Panda. The newer accounts are getting access to it for free. So the Cynthia's or the Catherine skin is available in VIP 11. So if you pay up to a VIP 11, so the 300 or whatever it is to awaken Catherine to begin with, they're being given the skin in the VIPs. Yeah, and everyone else is getting the
Ah.
yeah.
I mean, okay, so I have a different perspective on that because I do think newer players coming into the game do have a severe disadvantage.
Sure. Yep. Absolutely.
Absolutely, a huge disadvantage. I think that's awesome, but if we're looking at the differences between the high might players, the mid might players, and the low might players, right? High might players, there is such a huge gap between them, the middle class,
Yep.
we'll say, that whales will continue to only fight whales, which burns the whales out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We have a small group of people in the middle class that we can continue to fight without, for one, being demolished, right? We're
Well,
not losing all of our gain.
especially when we're at a situation where we're so close. Like I'm right at that 91 million, 92 million. I'm pushing for tier 6 real quick as well. I think I've got like 3 or 4, like 3, maybe 2 before I get my infantry tier 6.
Hey,
But it's such a long push, and there's such a huge might variance in having those tier 5 to tier 6 in what you're fighting in the battlefield, right?
absolutely. And, even as a strong T5, I do have good success. And I think that that does go down to the strategy aspect of this game, where
Absolutely.
it's like if you build them right and you take the tips of these big players who learned later on these things, you can be a really high might T5, but you're still not going to beat most T6s. You're fighting low grade T6s who don't have equipment, are
Yep.
new to fighting, who
Yep.
have bought the account. You don't really stand a chance. You can't garrison against them. Rallying against them is useless.
Yep.
You know?
It makes you feel almost like insignificant to a level, and since there's such a, what I've found, at least from my personal experience, since there's such a dried out period of the whales getting tired with each other, they're starting to move to smaller alliances to take breaks to give themselves easier matchmaking and things like that, which makes it shitty for everybody else. Because don't get me wrong, I don't mind having a 200 mil or a 300 mil player in my team, but when that means
Yeah.
that I'm fighting up against 200 and 300 million players as well, that just blows. It's so imbalanced. Knowing that everything that I've put into, say, armaments, for example, or parts, for example, gets superseded as soon as they drop the vehicles. Because now it's all about vehicles, and the vehicles provide such amazing buffs, and then they increase the level of the vehicles. Like there's just there's so much misdirection and convolution, right? Like the game is why is it based on YouTubers to help explain the rules of the game? Like why is there no, tutorials within the game that are actually valuable within the system?
Well, so I wanted to go back to what you just said about, the high might players jumping
Mhm.
into smaller alliances. And I'd like to share an experience. So, not this last AR, but the AR before.
Mhm.
Our alliance went in. There were 300 plus mil whales. We are a less than 3 billion alliance, right? We keep it that way so that way we have even matchmaking. We don't
Right.
want to go out there and fight huge whales because it's a disadvantage. They completely obliterated every one of the other legions. We did not stand a single chance. You can't garrison them. You can't. It didn't matter if every other legion went out there and fought them together. We were still gonna lose. And we lost so much,
Mhm.
right? We couldn't even get personal points because they would just walk through your alliance and just smush everyone.
And it's so imbalanced in that, following that exact, that same mentality, that it's disheartening for the players who are like us, who have invested a bunch of time, who have invested a bunch of money, and realize that the game caters to one specific demographic. It caters to one specific
Mhm.
class of individual, and that's the individual who's dropping thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month. One of the things that
Mhm.
I just discovered from having access to what you might consider to be a whale account, or what people would consider to be maybe a dolphin account, is they have certain access points or certain rewards and certain groups and things like that are only available once you spend a certain amount of money. Like the commanders
Mhm.
group, right? You can only achieve that once you spend like something like $5,000 a year, right?
Yep.
And maintain that. And then within that, there's other ones like, they reward you with more stuff the more that you spend. Like you're getting tickets and coupons for more gold, and you're getting, a whole bunch of weekly free gems and relocators and like a whole bunch of free shit. So you realize how much the developers really, I think, have lost touch with the community.
I think, yeah, I've made this point several times. Even when, when we talked about the protest before all of that stuff came out, I was one of the main voices when that happened. I had just made, you know, a comment in one of the chats that I'm in, and it kind of just blew up because it's true. I don't feel like they cater to the average player anymore. And I get keeping your whales happy. I get keeping your spenders happy, right? But to make such an advantage in every event to spenders, to every single event now. I mean, even TC is ruined. Something everybody looked forward to is everybody hates it.
Top
The
Commander.
only way you can succeed.
For those who don't know, that's TC is Top Commander, and they recently just opened it up to all regions, and they recently had a whole bunch of changes that they've been going back and forth on, like flip-flopping like fish. And so far, the consensus is that it's not really great, as per most of their changes. The only benefit that I give TC, the only benefit that I do give TC, is that with the increase in rewards, they did increase the rewards throughout the entire spectrum, and so that it is easier to effectively acquire the hero. Before you had to hit 15th to get 10 frags. Well, now it's like 30th or 50th or something to be able to get at least 10 frags. So they made that easier, but the top now gets 250. Like, why did you raise it on the top end too? They were already getting enough. Why are you giving them a free 250 specifically for the top? Now it's a whales event.
Well, yeah, and it absolutely is. And even if you look at the Splendid Steel event, right, the subcategory of this new event, before, I mean, I'm happy with this change because before you had to have 1,000 in order to get
it was 500 before.
Okay, and now it's 300, right?
Yeah.
Which is more achievable for the average player rather than dropping hundreds of dollars to get those thousands or saving for 6 months in order to compete.
That's something I talked about in my video, because we actually did the math on it originally, and you only earn something like 60 frags a day, or something like 68 frags a day, or something like that is what you can earn. So you'd have to save up effectively, when it was 500 for 3-4 events just to get rewards. But they do the same thing with the Hunter event, the Great Hunter event. You have to have 1,000 arrows just to get those ranking rewards.
Yep.
Do you know I've just saved 1,000 now?
Have you looked into getting the gold tickets in order to get the shelter skins and all of that? You have to achieve, is it like 1,700 or 1,800 or something to unlock the first level to get those in order to get the skins.
And then you need 800 of those coins in order to get a skin. Like it's ridiculous. They took an item which was totally achievable for playing and saving and doing your due diligence and went, screw you guys. And this was the worst part. I got a story for you. I was saving up to drop on the last event, or like on the next event, and then they changed it, and I'm like, I have all these saved. What do I do? And my dumbass used them because I was like, well, they screwed everything up, and I used them, and I was pissed off at the game, and now I'm kicking myself because I could have used them smarter,
I also, that's one of the other things about the TC event is something. So I used to be the trainer for our alliance for a long time. That's all I did for like a full year. And one thing we taught really heavily was save for TC, right? You need to have strong heroes, especially as smaller players. As we get bigger, there's other ways for us to achieve those things. But as smaller players, you save. I'm sorry, but no amount of saving or spending that I do right now is ever going to put me in the top. The fact that there are players that have 200 million points an hour into TC opening is absurd.
Yeah, when our
You can't even get that in the entirety of an event, much less the first hour.
There is a little bit of imbalance there simply because they did give out, like they're giving out twice as many points for speed ups. So speed ups are more valuable now, right? So the points scaling is a little bit more skewed to having more points, but you're 100% correct. I mean, even if you look at doubling the score in, I don't know how many TC events and how many Top Commander events, the winner of the whole event would have like maybe 200 million, maybe 175 million points. Like that would be the winner. But here you have people, like you said, in the first 10 minutes at 300 million points. I saw that in my first TC. I was like, well, they ruined it. Like
that's what I did too. I was like, well, screw that.
Yeah, now there's no reason to save. and
Yeah.
that's again so disheartening for the new players because, like you've mentioned, they have such a harder time.
Mhm. Yeah, and God forbid, they don't get into a region where the bigger alliances are going to welcome them in, where you do have
Mm,
spenders, where you do get that advantage. I see so often when we've bounced around regions where there's so many dead alliances with these players that are one once I take them on are amazing fighters. They're really easy to trade and really easy to develop, but they would have just died off.
yeah.
And then, once they get into a big alliance, they're like, "Oh my god, I grow so much faster." And it's like, "Yeah, but."
So here's actually a good question. Here's a good question for you. If you were to give a new player the best advice you have on how to find a good alliance, how to pick a good alliance, not just a strong alliance, because it's not just about might. Like what are some of your key things that you look for in a good alliance?
For one, I know something that most alliances struggle with is rule followers, right? Like, I do believe that there are aspects to having rules that are insanely important to growth. So if you look at the alliance board and you see these rules, normal, like farming inside your own territory, finish things off, donating, communicate, read stuff. I think for one, that's a huge advantage.
Mm-hmm.
The other is welcoming, right? Something that I really feed into my alliance is we're a family. Like they are my alliance family. We're all really close. And I like to keep incorporating members that talk like us or hang out and like the family feel.
Mm-hmm.
I think that that's a huge, huge advantage, right? Our communication is insane in our alliance, and we beat much larger alliances because of that. So I think finding a welcoming alliance that doesn't only focus on might, because I see that all too often. And might does not mean that you aren't a good fighter. Might doesn't mean that, you aren't intelligent and can't learn. And find somebody that's welcoming and willing to train you. Find an alliance that's educating,
Mm-hmm.
because that
And
will help you develop.
and I'll tell you right now, I have to admit, I'm in the process of repairing that mistake that we had. We went through a situation where GROP, like I originally started GROP as a way to create a competitive alliance in order to be able to, fight at the best of my abilities and compete at the highest that I can, right? The highest that you
Mhm.
can. Not shooting for the stars. I'm not shooting for G1 or anything like that. But I do want to be able to compete at the highest that I want to be able to have the best fights that I can at my level.
Yeah.
And in building it in that, it became more of a scenario where people were coming to me more for help and growth in, teaching and things like that. So it became more of that family order. But and I'm going to say this now, I made the mistake of um, deciding as we were already built up as a family to cut that for the competitive side of things. And it's really been the absolute worst. Like we're repairing massive damage from it now.
Mhm.
So if I ever am going to agree with you on one thing, it's definitely this. If you need an alliance or if you're looking for an alliance, you need to have one that treats it not just about the fighting and the points. You need them to treat it like they give a shit about the overall health of the alliance. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and as individuals, being the president, I feel like for one, I'm in a very unique region. And this is something that I fought really hard for. And Gio, he was the leader originally and trained me ultimately to take it over. He's still around, but I took all of it over. The one thing that I wanted was a region where we all come together, where we all fight together, where we help each other grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the top four in our region shares the metro. Every week, pass it on to each other to help the other presidents,
Four
right?
is pretty good. That's
We
crazy.
help each other out. It is, right? We have a Russian alliance, two Russian alliances, a Korean alliance, and a global alliance, all working cohesively together. At one point, we had a problem alliance, and we all came together to
To
get them
eliminate him.
out of the
Yeah.
region.
See, and that's why this game has this is what brought me to the game originally. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I've mentioned, there's tons of these types of games out there, right? There's tons of these types of build them up,
Mhm.
save them up, farm your resources, choose your heroes, right? Rise of Kingdom, State of Survival, like you name it. You could throw a dart
There's
and
a
hit
million of them.
1,000 of them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But the main thing that this one had different for me, outside of the battle phase, outside of the actual battle mechanics, which are, by the way, phenomenal,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
was the sense, like, the community in this game is, it's fantastic. Even from, like, one of my biggest worries about doing these interviews or starting a YouTube or anything like that was dealing with the backlash from the community, right? Because nobody likes a new guy, right? You'd anticipate a lot of trolling, you'd anticipate a lot of
Yep.
BSery, but it has been the absolute opposite of that. It's been 100% accepting, 99% accepting. There's always a couple of trolls.
Yeah.
But the whole premise is one that the community is very understanding, very accepting. Yes, there are idiots in English chat that eventually take over and, turn it into something that's not a nice place to be. But for the general consensus, the community is absolutely accepting, wonderful, and, creates that environment that you want to have, especially in your alliance.
And that's kind of where my point was going, was being a leader and on top of that, a president, you see so many different things. You see, for me, the big thing is I wear a lot of real life problems too. And to a lot of people, this isn't just a game,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, on a psychological aspect, so many of us use gaming to fulfill a side of us that we don't get in real life,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when I started this game, I had a lack of purpose. I'm a mom and I was bedridden. Okay. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't care for myself. I couldn't care for my children. Came into the game and became a leader. And it gave me a sense of purpose that
Mm-hmm.
I was lacking in real life. So not only like as a leader do you focus on the game, I also have people who tell me the traumatic stories in their life, right? And I'm there for you.
Yep.
I'll help you. If you need to go offline for 30 days, I'll watch your shelter for you. Like, it is such an amazing sense of community. You have that, right? Like, there's always those few that come in and bring the real life problems in. But one thing that I've noticed about this game is you have two polar opposites. You have the very diplomatic side, and you have the I'm gonna bring you to the ground side.
Mm-hmm.
There really isn't like a happy medium there,
Not
like that
really.
I've experienced yet.
Nope. No, you're either diplomatic and you want to win by conversation, or you want to win by stomping everyone until they can't move.
And they can play a part together, right? Like, be like, okay, we're gonna talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it, I'll smush you down until you're ready to talk. Like, I've used that tactic before.
You just don't want to have to lean to that one but that's why it's good to have a couple of big 200 mil players on your team, right? That's why.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'll just be like, hey guys, you want to come with me? We got to get these people to talk about some stuff.
That's right. That's right. We got to
Yeah,
get some, bring my guys in big trench coats, you know what I mean, with
yeah,
sunglasses.
yeah, exactly. No, I definitely think that, like, that's something that I love about this game. And my biggest fear with this game, there's so many times that, the stressors of the game have gotten to me. I won't even lie. It's like, the developers are messing so many things up and I can't keep up as a leader because there's so many changes and matchmaking is changing. And how do I get my alliance to bend to that so that they're not suffering in the midst of us trying to
Yep.
achieve these goals, right? And making sure that because I do have big spenders in my alliance, like really big spenders.
Yep.
And I also wear that too, right? As a leader, my job is to protect your investments
Right, and to make sure that they're having the
alongside
good
you.
and make sure that they're having the gaming experience that they want too.
Exactly. Like, you trusted me to lead you guys into battle, which again sounds so silly, but it isn't to me, right? Like, it is a sense of pride when I walk in there and I'm like, listen, I'm laying the fucking law down, you're gonna listen,
Yeah.
and we're gonna talk about some stuff. But I have to protect their investments too. And that's a lot of weight. And I get burnt out. And then I think about it and I'm just like, I love this game. I don't agree with what the developers are doing. I don't.
Yeah.
And I have seen so many of my friends, whales, big, huge spenders,
Yeah, yeah.
leave this game because of everything they've been doing. And it's devastating.
I mean,
I'm losing another community of mine and friendships that I've built because the developers don't want to listen to the average players.
and that's kind of, that's effectively what a lot of this you know, a lot of what my focus has become, you know, originally I've started to do a lot of videos about, you know, teaching and trying to help and things like that. And don't get me wrong, I'm still focused on trying to make sure that the free-to-play player has the best experience that they can, or the low-spending player has the best experience they can. Because to me, that's the bread and butter of your company. That's the bread and butter of your player base, right? Don't get me wrong, they might not be investing as much, which is why you have a lot of the prices that you have them on, because you know that the whales will spend, and you have to bank on that. But there's a huge validity that says, I'll give you a prime example. The helicopter is what, $500 to acquire. Now it's worth it. It's good. I give it credit. Again, another vehicle purchase, but it's $500. Do you think 5 times as many people would purchase it if it was only $100?
1,000%. And I've made that argument too, you know, like your micro spenders. There is a large number of micro spenders. Okay. Your small spenders daily spend, you know, $2.99. That adds up rapidly. But the more you bring it out of their range, you're relying on a smaller group of people. The whales are not the majority.
No, 100%
they never will
not.
be the majority.
Nope. They might, like I said, they might make up for the majority of the revenue currently, but I think that's also because of their pricing structure is not focused for the average spender. It's focused for them. It's focused on how to get as much out of them as physically possible.
And I know a lot of them are noticing that. I've talked to a lot of my whale friends that are just like, I feel like they're taking advantage of my money now. Like at this point, it's a joke, right? Like before I was spending to stay ahead. Now everyone's spending just to stay where they're at.
Yeah, there's no, it's not pay to win.
Reward. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pay to stay, which again, if you're picking a pay to win model, there's a premise here we have to talk about, you know? I totally appreciate that. No, this has been an absolutely great conversation. I got one last question here before we tee off, just because we have been going here for a while. I got one last thing. If you could tell the developers anything, if they were to watch this video and see it through to its culmination and get any bit of information from you, what would be the last thing that you would want to say for them to hear? Slow down.
Slow down.
I like that. Simple.
Stop, that's it. Just slow down. Stop taking it to these extremes. Stop releasing 15 events at a time and let us grow with what you've already offered us. So many options right now to choose from. Let us grow with that for a little while. Let us get to a point where we can achieve these things, you know, and then a new thing, but just slow down.
That's such a simple mentality, but it's such a great one to end on, because at the end of the day, this game, if you want it to have the longevity, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? And any of these like high sprint runners will tell you, there's a reason why they don't run 400, 600, 1,000 meters. They'll run 100 meters, and they do that very fast. And then they run out and they're done. And I'm like, well, I guess the question is, developers, what do you want? Do you want to run a sprint, or are you looking for a marathon? Because it seems
do you want a game that's gonna stay?
Yeah.
I mean, look at all the other games that went this route. They don't even exist anymore.
Well, exactly. And the remnants of what is there is, it's asinine. You know, you look at Rise of Kingdoms, you look at State of Survival, like I mentioned previously. They're shells of what they were previously. And even this one, right? So the idea to just slow down, and you could make simple changes, simple quality of life changes that would make things so much easier, right? Instead of level 6 nodes, why do we not have a level 7 or level 8? That would be super easy to code in. It would help with farming. It would help with all that kind of stuff. Why don't we have that yet? Why don't we have level 6 hive minds on the regular map yet? Why are they only available in special events? Like, they should have those, and that would be easy things to solve. They added that map freaking blobby thing that's all over the map in the general map. They had the event that was on for a little while, but they had like one time, and now it's still in the map, and they don't do anything with it. Like, There's a ton of
Why
ways.
have you taken it out?
That's right. Or why haven't we rerun it? Like, why hasn't it been another thing? You could run that just as often or in the off weeks. It's already coded. You've done it before. And those simple things would make the free-to-play player far more enticed to stick around and deal with the bullshittery because they got more stuff to do. Yep. And it would help the whales out better because now they're farming better, right? And they're not, like, it's more efficient for everybody. Those are simple decisions.
They really are. And, something I noticed, because there was a big irritation from a lot of players with the back-to-back events. And I won't lie, I was one of those. For one, as a leader and a president, again, giving buffs all the time during events, exhausting.
Totally.
Exhausting.
Yep, totally.
As a leader, having to be on and, like my sleep schedule's all crazy. To watch, like, go back to back to back was exhausting. It didn't fill that gap, right? So instead of giving us some leeway and adding things to do in the meantime, now everybody's just like, I just log on to farm, right? So alliances aren't growing. You're not really growing because all you're doing is farming because there's nothing else to be doing.
Yeah, it's like you're waiting for top commander, and outside of that, it's nothing but fighting. And I'll be honest, the repetitive cycle that they had, especially when they introduced GW, right, Genesis War, was nothing but a meat grinder. And even in my opinion, the rewards aren't worth the grind.
Still aren't.
No, they're not.
They still aren't. We did the sit out, and I don't know, like, it still just sucked because it's like, I want the rewards, but I know that I'm going to go through at least 15 relocators. I'm going to burn through all my resources again to just have to save up once more, still go in with a minute amount of resources the next week. Like, GW, they need to increase the rewards because I use so much more in GW than I do AR, and I feel like AR is more tactical. You should be using more in AR than you do in GW. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, not to mention that the fighting that you're doing specifically in Genesis War is done specifically, like 90% of it is done in towers, in garrisons, in rallies. So you're already getting those natural kills. So your hospital doesn't have to be full to get the kill. So you're already losing troops in most of the fights. It's not field battle like it is in AR. A lot of AR is field battle, fighting over your scavengers, fighting over cement, fighting over nodes, hunting farms, things like that. It's much more strategic. Don't get me wrong. I like the premise of Genesis War. It has great foundation, right? But you're right. The rewards need to be better. I think the fight times need to be, like, you need to be able to sign up for them. Just to have one longer fight time doesn't make any sense to me.
No, because that just means now I'm up before the sun is up and I'm doing it longer.
Yeah, and if you have kids, like it ends up being like 8 o'clock in the morning for me, and I'm getting my kids ready for school. If they're heading off at that time, I'm getting my wife ready. I'm getting that's my work day start, and I'm supposed to take an hour and a half off now. Like, that doesn't make any sense, right? And I think even simple decisions like that is something that the community needs to voice, which is what these talks are great for. So I really appreciate you coming on here and telling us all about that. If you wouldn't mind letting us know what alliance you're currently in and what region you're in, so that way if people, of course, if you want to, if people want to say hi, they can obviously say hi to you, and you can connect more with the community from there.
Of course, region 482, and I am the leader of GAP.
GAP.
Yes.
Like the clothing company. Nice. Nice.
Yes. GAP. Also, disclaimer, if you do hit me up on game, don't be a weirdo.
That's right. I mean, that should be the common thing, right? Common people should be common.
Should be.
I do like to back the community a little bit. They have been pretty nice. I haven't had any dick pics yet. But that
makes one of us. No.
Yeah, I guess it might be a certain demographic. I don't know. You know what I mean? But that being said, folks,
real burn happy.
Yeah, that's right. With that being said, folks, thanks very much for tuning in, and it's been an absolute blast. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Allie, for tuning in with us. Obviously, your opinion matters. Thanks for voicing it with us here today. Anybody else, if you're listening, don't forget to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and share it with your friends. This is a new weekly segment, Who TF Are You?, where we're going to be interviewing people from all walks of life in the game and get their kind of opinions on where it is now, where they'd like to see it, And, just to get some names to faces, because there are a lot of people. I've got a fly that just won't leave me alone. But there's a lot of people out in the community that makes it so fantastic. So thanks again for being a part of that.
Thank you, and thank you for having me here. I really appreciate this opportunity to voice the other side of things.
Absolutely, absolutely. That being said, folks, I'm going to end it here. Love, peace, chicken grease, and until next time, stay lifted.